transform your business after 20 years. And a couple things I want to remind folks of. When we talk about small business, we're talking anywhere from 1 to 25 employees. That's typically the size of our clients. And we focus on the 7 keys to success. And if you're in front of a computer or you're going to be near one sometime soon, you can go to our website, MaximumVP.com. There's a link there, a menu item called the MVP Playbook. And one of the items underneath there is called the 7 keys to success. Nice little graphic that's there that you can download to your computer, or you can print it off if you're the kind of person who likes to print stuff off as well. And gives a nice visual to it. But for this particular case, the first one and the second one, the vision and the profit plan, are very, very key in order to transform a business after 20 years. So let me paint the picture before you real quick. So this is a client, like I said, we'd come to know him after he'd been in business for a couple of decades. And the industry that they were serving was going through some dramatic changes due to technology. Imagine that, right? I'm sure many of you listening today can really fathom that. And the choice he had, he'd been doing well for the first, out of those 20 years, when he had probably 15 or 18 years that were very good. The last couple of things started to kind of get a bit tough.
I'm still trying to think of who this is.
That's right. And so when you're faced with that, it's almost like going through a total restart of the business. Very, very challenging. Because here you are looking at that, you feel like you made it to the top of the mountain, and all of a sudden you look up and there's more places to climb. And you can't stay where you are. And so this client decided to take that very tough choice of reinventing the business. And in order to do that, he had to reinvest in the business. And really to kind of prepare the company for the next decade plus. So when I say investing in the business, he started cutting into profits that were being drawn out for him to be able to put into his pockets. So in this particular case, it was a company that was in the publishing industry.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to help Jack here figure out who it is.
Thank
so he
you.
can
Yeah,
follow
I
along.
needed a hint.
I'm getting those squirrely, I like to help him out a little
Squirrely
bit.
looks.
So
what are we talking about here?
So a big change for them was to go from thinking about, hey, we're people that produce books, to people who produce content. I know content's a big buzzword these days. Content. Well, they've been providing content for years. It happened to be in the form of published physical books. But things were changing, especially when it comes to the classrooms. And a lot of technology was coming to bear. So having electronic books, and at the point where he's starting to make this transition, it wasn't quite sure what was going to happen yet. This is right as things like the iPads and the readers are starting to come on board. Technology coming into the classroom in a big way for the first time. So he had to place multiple bets in terms of trying to find different ways to deliver and put his content into play.
That's right. That's our coaching challenge with him. I remember it well. Oh, we have a number of those. Times are changing right now so fast with technology and culture that much of what we do are dealing with small business owners who are trying to figure it out and transform, exactly what the title of this little success story is.
Right. So to try to figure that out on your own is very difficult to do.
Lots of how questions there. Boy, that's for sure.
I'm sure you can imagine in the publishing, when it comes to school publishing, there are some pretty good sized players in that. Billions and billions in terms of revenues and profits that are out there versus this little company that had a nice little niche. So to go to compete against some of those folks is very, very daunting, very, very tough, but it's certainly very, very doable. One of the beauties of being a small company is you can be much more nimble and fail faster. Failing fast is a good thing when you're trying to transform things, to figure out what doesn't quite work as well. But it's tough. Again, you picture yourself, if you've been in business for a while, maybe 15, 20, 30 years, you've gotten to a certain state, a certain comfort level. You're used to making a certain amount of money, or pulling a certain amount of money out of the business, or certain things that are there. Having to now not take as much of those things or have to reinvest is very difficult.
So daunting, yeah. And I know those how questions are there with many of our clients listening to us today. They don't know how to start. How do I take that 15, 20-year drive, not drive, but development to get my business to where it's at? How do I now change to something else? How do I make sense of this technology and the cultural change? How do I do that? Very, very difficult to try to do that alone. And many don't. And, they tend to fold up the tent, or things start to turn negative in a big way, and it's unfortunate because it doesn't have to happen. There's no guarantee that the business you start today is going to last for millions of years. Just doesn't happen. In fact, you'd be hard pressed to find many companies are around today in this country that have been more than 100 years old. It just doesn't happen. Very, very difficult, very rare.
That's right. In the prior segment, Jack was talking about the failure rates of startups. Well, if you look at a transition stage, only about 1 in 3 go from the first generation to the second generation.
Correct.
Okay?
Correct.
And then it's another 20% of those that survive to the third generation. So, even if you get to third generation, you're talking, what, 50 years? That's maybe 1 in 5 companies, maybe, that are able to be able to do that.
And even many of those companies, they've changed themselves. They may
Sure.
not have changed the name of the company, but they certainly have changed over the decades to providing a new product or service with a whole new emphasis. Certainly nothing that was there when they started, other than the name of the company. Totally a transformation.
That's right. That was the case for this client as well. And it took a better part of 5 years of reinvesting and revamping and looking at the company differently. It started, though, with, I mentioned that to see themselves as a content company helped early on to get that frame of reference down, to where they could start to see themselves differently, because that opened up doors versus being constricted with the old way of thinking. Hey, we have to get something where it's going to be physically published in a book.
You're absolutely right.
So it's very key to get that framework down. That's why the vision was very, very key. The profit plan was key as well, because you got to show that you can make money doing this stuff. And so he had a combination of, again, taking some of the profits to reinvest it, but also taking some money from the banks to be able to put into this and make an investment in it as well. And after 5 years, got the thing on course again, to where it's teed up for the foreseeable future to do very, very well. And now it has a chance to be now turned over to the next generation. Because at this point, he's 30 plus years into the company, and he's ready to kind of be ready to eventually hand it over to the next generation.
That's a good story. He's a good story. Yeah.
But it's tough. It's very tough to do. And if you're going through something like that, or you think you might be going through something like that, it's great to reach out to somebody like Maximum Value Partners or other folks who you know, because coaches can help you a lot to help you work through these things. Because it's very difficult to do it on your own and not have some outside influences from that standpoint coming into it. And it doesn't have to be somebody who has an expert in that industry. As a matter of fact, it may be better if they're not, because they can see things
you
totally
raise
differently.
Objective questions. Yeah, business is business. It just applies to a different. The rules apply to a different product or service. That's what changes.
That's right.